Hey, this is Dr. Jonathan Shepard speaking. It's a pleasure to be with you all on another Friday episode of Ask the Doctors. Come on in the room for those who are joining us. I am so excited to be with you again. We have an awesome show in store for you today. Today is Friday, March the 12th, 2021. Imagine we have just surpassed the 1 year anniversary of when the World Health Organization declared that the coronavirus was a pandemic or is a pandemic. I say was because we can't say was because it still is going on right now. And let me tell you, I'm just grateful to be alive. This is awesome that we're going to have a discussion today about one of the impacts that the coronavirus has had. But let me just kind of set the room, kind of set the stage, introduce to you all what was going to happen today. So again, Dr. Shepard here. I am a physician, chief medical officer over at Hope Health Systems, which sponsors this particular show, Ask the Doctors. And with that said, we provide direct care for mentally ill or mentally challenged folks, and particularly for children and adolescents. Of course, we take care of adults too, but I'm proud to be a part of this organization. And like I just stated, we just passed the 1 year anniversary of this coronavirus being named a pandemic, and it has affected so many of us. If you would have thought March 12th of 2020 that we would be where we are today, 530 some thousand people died due to the virus, due to the coronavirus. And let me tell you, it's probably more than that. The numbers are still coming in. The isolation, the mental health effects, the anxiety, the anger, the apathy, all of that is real. And so many people are dealing with so much out there. And yet, I just want to let you all know that you're still here. You're still here today to be able to see this episode. And for that, we must give thanks. For that, we must give grateful or have gratitude and be also thankful that God has allowed for us to be here once again. Let me just share with you just a couple of things before I bring on our guests. Baltimore City has decided not to lift some of the restrictions, and we're still waiting to hear some of the metrics that the local public health officials have made that determination by. But I want people to know that even if you have gotten the vaccine, you've been vaccinated once, vaccinated twice, please know that it's not time to lift the mask. It's not time to stop washing your hands. It's not time to stop physically distancing. This is our time to continue to be diligent in what we're doing. This really falls right in line with what we're talking about today, because now with the vaccines happening, more and more people are getting more anxious. We just had an 80-degree weather day here in Baltimore, and it was a beautiful day. Even today is beautiful, almost 70 degrees. And so people are now itching to get back outside. They're itching to get back to sports. They're itching to get back to things that they love to do. And so with that said, there's a lot of angst. There's a lot of anxiety as to how do we get back to doing those things that we were doing before the pandemic. So what I want you to do is I need you to share this particular episode. Thank you for all those who are out there. Thank you, Toya, all the way from California, being a constant supporter. And I know that we'll have more people out there from across the country. We even had people from different countries last episode. I want to say last week. And so with that said, please share. But let me tell you, people are anxious about how to move forward, how to be able to handle the situations that we must deal with after now facing the after effects of this pandemic. So I think I have talked enough to kind of set the room, kind of set the atmosphere. I'm going to start bringing on some of our guests. Today, we're going to talk about the impact of sports, or the impact that sports have on a person's mental health. And ultimately, we're going to ask the question, should I allow my children to play sports again even in the midst of a pandemic that has not ended? Wow. That's such an important question. And I've got some people here today who are going to help us to have a real dialogue. We were already talking before the show started, so I'm just anxious. I'm really excited about what's going to happen. And then we're going to have a special surprise guest for you too, and we'll see how that would turn out too. Because I want to make sure that when people are making decisions, they're making smart decisions. They're making well thought out decisions. And so this conversation today is to challenge you, to give you insight, to be able to help you to propel forward and what needs to happen. So let me bring on our first guest. This is a wonderful gentleman who I've known since working at Hope Health Systems. His name is Olu. I'm going to bring him on, and then he's going to tell us a little bit about himself. Mr. Olu, how are you doing, sir?
How you doing, Dr. Sherwood? I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely, man. Oh, you know, I forgot to mention, I got a cap on. This is a sports edition. I went to University of Chicago. I know a lot of people, they might try to down University of Chicago because it's a Division III school. But I want people to know that the first Heisman Trophy winner came from University of Chicago. I don't think people know that.
I did not.
Yeah, man. It used to be a Division I school, but let me tell you, I don't know what happened. But the first Heisman Trophy winner came from my school, University of Chicago, and now the motto there is "Where fun comes to die." But anyway, let's get on to you, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and we'll move forward with this conversation.
All right, how y'all doing? I'm Olu Faison. I work at Hope Health System as a family service coordinator. I played 5 years of college football. I did 2 years, 2 JUCOs, so I've been pretty traveled. I went to school at Feather River in California. Then I transferred to ASA in Brooklyn, and I finished my undergrad at Northwestern Oklahoma State, where I played Division II football.
Gotcha. All right. So you were just above where I was as far as the division.
Yeah, we were NAIA, so you was kind of higher than us, but we moved up to D2.
Oh, okay. I got you. Gotcha. And we're going to talk even about a little bit about what the different divisions mean, because that took a little bit of time for me to even understand what that meant. Now, we also have a gentleman here who who I think played with you. Who's even your coach. So I'm going to bring him on, Mr. Dimitri Wilson. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, Dr. Shepard. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you. And he's coming live all the way from where now?
I'm located in Oklahoma City right now.
Oh, man, this is awesome. So again, we are spanning across the country today. And so thank you for being here. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Wilson.
I'm Dimitri Wilson. I'm from Homestead, Florida. I came to school at Northwestern Oklahoma State University, where I met Olu, played with him, coached him. I got my undergrad in criminal justice law enforcement. I just graduated with my master's degree in December in adult education management and administration. I focus on player development and recruiting for high school athletes. I just want to change the directive of the development side of it and the recruiting side of it, and just the things you might go through mentally through sports, through the recruiting aspect that most parents and most students just don't know about. I just provide a free service to where you could just talk to me and I contact you and just help you out throughout the process, more of a consulting. And I'm also a manager at Enterprise right now. I'm manager trainee for Enterprise.
Awesome. Man, that's awesome. So let's get started with this discussion. I'm going to bring on our other guests next. But let's just talk a little bit between the two of you all, Olu and Mr. Wilson. So tell me, what was the impact of sports for you? So let's just start with you, Olu, just to start with that question. What impact does sports have in your life?
You know, growing up in Baltimore, it's easy to go left on the wrong path. So you kind of need that accountability of something that's pushing you besides school, because a lot of kids, you're not interested in school. You need something that holds you accountable and push you to be something better. For me, sports was always like an outlet. I didn't really express myself with words, so sports, me being able to like be out and be active, it did something to me mentally. Really, just take me to another place, because it's not really much. if you could do something in sports, you could do anything in life. I feel like, because you got to go to a different mental capacity to do it. It's different from studying. It's different from a lot of things that you can sit down and do. When you have somebody in front of you as a competition, it's more pride. So you take everything you do in pride, thinking of preparation and discipline. So every time I'm doing something, I'm thinking, would this benefit this or that? If it doesn't, I don't try to do it. It made me grow up quicker than I needed, more mature, basically.
Wow, man, you said some powerful things there. Dimitri, respond to some of those things that Olu said.
I definitely would have to agree with Olu. Sports to me would just have to be the same. It's just the outlet, just the expression. And for me, it's just a way to network, make connections. I feel like the connections I made with sports, I honestly feel like I wouldn't have made them doing no other way that I feel like in my life, and I've done a lot of things. I just feel like the connection you make with your friends, those teammates, like me knowing Olu's from Baltimore, I'm from Homestead, Florida. We met each other in Oklahoma. It's just kind of crazy that those connections that you get through sports. And I met you through Olu. It's just crazy how the expansions go. So I like that about sports too. I feel like it's life change. I just feel like the connections you have. I'm just big on connections. I feel like sports is a big connection point. And I just feel like it definitely is a releasing point, and it's an outlet, and it's just something else that's going to definitely keep you pushing, something that's going to keep you motivated. It's a lot of factors. Even now, after going through school and get my master's, I can still see why some people might not want to go to college. Like I can almost say I can see why you would want to go a different route if you didn't want to go to school. I can see why it's different. Is you want to do other things. So I just feel like sports is just definitely something that will just give you that extra motivation if you need it, or you just might need that extra push, or you just might like the excitement of it.
So tell me, how was Olu when you had to coach him? I want to hear some dirt. That's what I want to hear.
Because we good friends, we done a lot from just players, and we was always side by side. Him and another one of our good friends, we were always just side by side, same size, same position. So it was just hard to get over the fact of like, man, this is just one of my good friends, and I got to coach him.
Wow.
But it's just we never even spoke on it, I think. But it was just the fact that he respected what I was trying to do in life, so that really made it a lot easier. He respected the direction I was taking as a friend and as a man growing too. So when I got on him in practice, it wasn't like, he could have just told me like, oh, Dimitri, like, just be quiet, man. Like we know each other. Like, you can't be on me like this. But he definitely was just, he respected me and what we had going on. So I don't really got no dirt on him because he actually showed me a good service when I was coaching him.
Gotcha. And so Olu, now tell us, what position did you play? What sport? All that.
I played defensive line and I played football.
Okay, gotcha. And how was Dimitri as a coach?
I feel like I'm an easygoing player. I respect the authority figures. So it made it easy for me. I mean, he the coach for a reason. I gotta listen. So I just let me do my job. He does his job. I respect him. He respect me. No issues for me. I'm not really the disrespectful type. I'm coachable. I just want to get the job done.
Gotcha. And before I bring on our next guest, I want you all to think about this particular question, and then I'll bring on our next guest. But the question really revolves around what does sports really do for your self-esteem? What, if it did anything at all? Did sports do anything for you in that area? And then I'll move on.
I'll go first. I feel like it does. Even I wouldn't even say I was terrible at football, but I wasn't the greatest. You know what I'm saying? But I just feel like it does give you the extra charisma about yourself because you are playing a sport. You are working towards something. You might be working out. It does. I feel like it does do something for you mentally, physically, emotionally. I just feel like it makes you feel a little better sometimes. But then it's a negative effect to it too. Because what if you're not getting those reps in practice? What if you're not getting those reps in the game? What if you're not starting? I feel like it could also make you feel belittled, make you feel bad about yourself. It brings a whole other perspective to it because you could be feeling like the worst person in the world because, man, you might be thinking to yourself, I might just suck. And then when you think that, it's hard to get out that slump because now you practicing bad, now you playing bad, now you just not doing anything right. You're not going to class, you're not just doing nothing. You can't. It's hard to get out that slump. So that's my answer.
Yeah. Olu, you want to add anything to that?
He hit it right on the head, especially about when you're playing bad. Your whole demeanor is on the left side because I know when I play bad, I have an attitude. I'm not gonna lie. I was one of those players. Like when everything's not going well, just don't talk to me. Because outlet, if I'm not good at my outlet, like what's going good in my life right now?
So is that what we're seeing when we see athletes kind of quote get out of control or act out, or they start fighting? I think about some of the fights that we've seen. I know we just saw some terrible fights this past year in the NFL season, where helmets were ripped off and stuff like that. Yeah, is that what's happening?
I think sometimes it could be both. Like I said, it could be sometimes you could be on top of the world in the game, and you could be feeling like I'm untouchable. And if you try me out here, like I might want to show you why I'm feeling this way. So you could be feeling very boastful, and you could not be feeling very humble at all, and you could just be looking to prove something to somebody. So that's why I keep saying it could go both directions. So I can see both sides. And then if you are feeling bad, you might not be like, oh, so you can't release your outlet because you're being bad at your outlet. So you might be frustrated. That might cause the fights. That might cause the lashing out when you go out. That might cause you doing other things, the drug abuse. That might just cause all those things also.
Gotcha. You want to say anything to that, Olu, before we bring on Dr. T?
The way I feel about football is kind of different. It's a violent sport, so those scuffles are gonna happen. So it's like kind of normal. Like we in practice and we like, yo, you're my bro. We love each other. But then it's like offense, defense. We got to get it out some way. But it stays on the field. It's not nothing ever personal. I mean, some things go too far.
Okay.
Like the ripping of the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
That was too far. But anything done to the quarterback is too far nowadays. So we just got to take that with a grain of salt.
All right. I hear you. I wish I had a quarterback that was on here now. We'll see whether or not they had something to say about that. All right. Dr. T is about to join us. Dr. Armand T. He is a board certified child, adolescent, adult psychiatrist. I'm going to bring him on. Hey, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This has been a wonderful conversation thus far. Just tell us folks a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to integrate you into this conversation.
I appreciate it. So my name's Armand Tagazada, which is why I go by Dr. T. It's just a little bit easier. It fits better on the screen. I'm from the Baltimore area. I was a high school All-American wrestler. I wrestled Division I. After college, I actually was a teacher and a high school wrestling coach, which not many people know. And then I went to medical school. Did my medical school at University of Maryland, did my residency training in both adult as well as child and adolescent psychiatry at Johns Hopkins, which is where I met Dr. Jonathan Shepard, which was a pleasure for me. I was a little bit older than him and had an opportunity to kind of work with him as he was coming up. And then I've been out in practice for a greater 11 years. I've got a private practice. I work with kids, adolescents, adults, and I also have a specialty and a niche in working with high performance athletes, coaches, parents. And I've created a program called Mindset Training Institute where we teach mental skills training and mindset training to coaches, parents, sports medicine professionals. So it's been a really cool opportunity to sort of integrate my initial passion, which was teaching and coaching, with my medical degree and my mental health background and be able to kind of create this opportunity. I also have a podcast called The Mindset Experience where I bring on elite athletes and professionals and tap into like their mindset about how they overcame challenges, how they've been successful. And it's been a great opportunity that I've created in the last years. Dr. Shepard was talking about, just imagine a year ago, I didn't have it a year ago. And somebody said, hey, you should do a podcast. And I challenged myself to do it. And it's been a really cool opportunity to also kind of create and educate on a larger level as people are home and they're stuck and they want to get information about how to be better and really to kind of support and empower them. So it's been a lot of fun. And I'm grateful to be here with you guys tonight. So that's
Absolutely.
The story.
Absolutely. And we kind of started the same way too. How I started this particular broadcast is because we wanted to help people who are struggling in their minds, struggling, who are at home. And we've covered so many different areas. And so this is one area that has been untouched. And Olu and I, we were talking during one of our trainings. And I said, man, we need to have you on the show. And we did talk about this because sports is such a huge part of the American culture. If you think about how much money it generates, you think about the type of things that we were just talking about. So actually, Dr. T, I want you to really just jump in on that conversation right now. We've talked about the impact of sports on a person's mental health. So what have you seen just through your teaching, through your experience?
I appreciate that. And first, let me just say about this, the impact of sport in general, right? Because you guys were talking about self-esteem and growth and all that. But, I was always a small guy. I'm 5'4". I was even shorter then. And for me, wrestling was something that helped with my confidence, helped my self-esteem, helped me become bigger. I always thought I was bigger than I really was, right? And allowed me that outlet to be able to do that and to grow. But the other thing it taught me was confidence. It taught me humility. It taught me a work ethic. And not many people know this, but when I got and decided to go to medical school, at my interview, when I was interviewed, the gentleman said, "You were a wrestler?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You were a college wrestler?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You were pretty good?" I said, "Yeah, I was pretty good." Like, where's he going with this? And he said, within 3 minutes, he said, "I'm recommending you for acceptance to medical school next year." And I was like,
Wow.
"Appreciate that, but I don't understand it." He said, "What you've done through athletics and the determination and the hard work and the effort," he said, "the world needs more wrestlers and medicine needs more wrestlers." So I think it's just so powerful as a testament of what sport can do for growth development. But you guys talked about these connections and these bonds that you guys have had, right? Like, it got me into medical school.
Wow.
Dr. Shepard can attest, when you're in medical school, it's a gut check. It's a reality check. Oftentimes you're wondering, why am I here? I don't belong here. I'm not smart enough. These other kids are smarter. They work hard. I don't know if I can do this. And I was able to draw upon those experiences in residency when we were working 100-hour weeks. We were working 30 hours straight. And you're sitting there thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, and no matter how hard you work, people are dying. People are getting sick. People aren't getting better. And you're thinking, am I cut out to do this? I would draw on those athletic experiences. And for me, it was particularly wrestling. So when I think about sport and what it does from a mental health standpoint, I think there's definitely two sides of it. And we're going to get into that. But for me, some of the benefits, just the confidence, the growth, the work ethic, the ability to have to figure problems out, even when you're in the trenches, right on the line, right, offense, defense. You come straight at somebody, he stops you. You can't just stop. You have to figure out a way around them, right? And you keep moving. You play to the whistle, right? Like, this is what I'm taught, is no matter what, you keep going until somebody tells you to stop. And even then, sometimes you don't stop, right? And this attitude in life is so important, because how many times do we get into a situation, particularly with COVID, where the world stops and there's so many people thinking, I don't know what to do. But for me, the athletic mentality says, you know what, figure it out. Like, figure it out. You've been through tougher. You've been through challenges. You can figure this out and look for these opportunities. And they may not be right in front of you, right? But if you continue to work hard and you trust in yourself and you trust in all your training that you've done, you find a way. And here we are, a year later, the four of us talking, and we figured some stuff out, right? So to me, there's a work ethic and a discipline and just sort of this ability to draw upon previous experiences that can really carry you through tough challenges, right? So I think those are some of the benefits that I've had. I think culturally, for me, wrestling is one of those sports where it spans, I think, multiple demographics, right? You don't need a lot of money to wrestle, right? It's just shoes and a headgear, right? And then you need a mat. But like, I was able to travel to like different parts of the country, different parts of Baltimore City, right? Different parts, and really meet so many friends of mine who are close friends now, who I never would have met, that are from different demographics, different socioeconomic backgrounds. I've met people from different countries. I've actually traveled to different countries and become, familiar with wrestling from a cultural experience. So I think there's so much that we can learn that you can't learn in a book. You can't learn in a classroom, right? But you learn through sport. And to me, those are some of the benefits. And personally, I've experienced them. And again, we can talk about some of the risks and the challenges. But, when I think about where I am today, 100%, had it not been for wrestling, it had not been for athletics, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here.
Wow.
I would be somewhere, but I wouldn't be a physician who's this successful.
Wow.
Wouldn't be able to provide such great care to people because I've had those experiences.
Wow. You said something, play to the whistle. I'm going to utilize that. Oh, I can literally hear a coach say that, play to the whistle. Come on, Dimitri, respond to some of the things that Dr. T said.
I'll actually have to very much read the mindset of play to the whistle, because I just have to, I feel like that every day in my profession, everything I'm trying to do. Right now, one of my goals is to break the Power 5 realm for football. I took a voluntary internship at Eastern Illinois University in Charleston, Illinois. My son was just born, and just the mentality of like, this is something I want to do. Like, I got this is something I want to do. I don't want to fail at it. Sports gave me that mentality. It gives me the mentality. I feel like no matter what profession I'm in, to outlast, I'll persevere, just beat everybody else I'm around, just get that competition factor, that competitiveness. Even though we might not be in a realm where we competing, I turn into competitiveness just so I can get through the day, just so I can keep progressing, just so I can keep getting better at what I want to do. So that's what I have to say on it so far.
Olu.
Play through the whistle. You know why they say that? Because the film never lie. It always roll. That's how I think about everything.
Wow.
Somebody's always watching. So gotta give 100% on everything. And I agree with Dr. T. You just go to a different level, a different mindset playing sports and then building your confidence. I remember one time in 7th grade, I quit. I quit basketball because I couldn't run. And everybody made fun of me, and I never quit again in my life at anything. So sometimes public humiliation is good for motivation.
Yeah, sometimes it is. I like public humiliation. I remember very clearly when I was in high school. There was a coach that he humiliated me. He would just roll me. We were now again, I was a little bit one of those suburban kids, so don't talk about me too bad. But we had canoeing, and so I was out there in a canoe, and he wanted us to do something. I couldn't get it. And I mean, the coach he just wailed on me. And you see to this day, I mean, that's been I'm not going to date myself, but that's been some years ago. But I still remember that. I still remember hearing those words, and it made me upset. And so I can even hear how sometimes a coach will say something that will inspire you to do something. You may not like it at the time, which is what I'm hearing from you all, but it will push you to move forward. And so that is wonderful. What I want to do is I want to begin to pivot just a little bit because we're talking about the benefits of sports. And so I don't think there's any argument there. The controversy that we want to get to is with all these benefits of what sports can do, they had to be shut down. The NBA, if you remember this time last year, I think it was the Utah Jazz. I think that's where the first player who contracted the coronavirus. I think that's right. And so it just continued just to blossom from there, and they had to shut the whole season down. The coronavirus has just come in and has made people just say, I don't want my child out there. So I want you all to speak to that. I'm actually going to start with Dimitri first, and then we're going to go to Dr. T. Come on, speak to what has been the effect of the coronavirus on sports and the mental health of the athlete.
I think the effect of coronavirus on sports has just been I was just from the realm I was in with college athletics. I would say for the kids I was dealing with high school kids, it really affected them just because a lot of kids either couldn't play, couldn't get those same recruiting tools. So you got a lot of kids that feel like at the time, they don't know a lot of options. You have a lot of kids, depending on their environment and where they're from, they might not know what's going on in the world. They might not know, okay, I can go get a trade. They might just know, okay, maybe my only option in life is the military or college. So when COVID came around, kids that are playing sports, they just felt lost. Like I know a lot of high school kids that were contacting me all over social media, like, Coach, I just don't know what to do. Like what do I even still have a chance with you all? What chance do I have with your school? What chance do I have with this? Now and then at that, these kids aren't going to classes anymore either. They're physically not interacting with teachers, their teammates, nobody. So I know a lot of high school kids that they just told me that took a toll on them. And I feel like even with sports and COVID, now that high schools are opening back up, or like sports are just opening back up in general, and people are actually back at games, I just feel like you have to take caution, take the caution that you want to take, especially if you're thinking about playing or having your kid play. Because I actually just had a son last year, and before I would have said I would have played. Like, oh, sign me up, I'm playing. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll go play. If I get it, I get it. Now that I got a son, I am thinking to myself, like, how would I feel if my son was out there? If my son was 16, 15, or just even in youth sports, would I let my son go play? And it's been hard for me to answer, and I've been trying to ask myself that question every day, even though my son at that point. But it's just the fact that I know, what if this happens again? Like, or I'm trying to put myself in parents and student athletes' shoes and their mindset, like how are they feeling about this?
Yeah. And because let me tell you, just before you start, Dr. T, you think about the guy on Kansas City, the physician, who chose not to play and to go back to Canada, I believe, and I can't remember his name, but he went to go to continue his practice. There is a baseball player right now. I forget. I remember he's an outfielder, I think center fielder, but he's chosen not to play again this year because of what you just said, Dimitri. He has a young family, and he's concerned about his young family. So, Dr. T, come on, tell us what has this coronavirus done to the mental health of the athlete, and then we're going to hear from you, Olu.
Yeah, no. So I think it's tough. Dimitri's talking about like physically, right? People not being in the classroom, people not being with their teammates. What's also interesting that I found, right? And I mentioned I work with a lot of athletes and elite athletes, and was working with a lot of teams, and then COVID hit, right? And all of a sudden, coaches are like, we don't know what to do. We never had it. Like, what do we do? Athletes don't know what to do. Parents are calling me like, what do we do? And I think part of the problem too is that, as athletes and coaches, a lot of the training is for a purpose, right? Like for a game, for a season. Like a lot of it is extrinsic, right? So they would show up and go to practice because if you show up to practice, you will make the team. If you make the team, and you practice, you might get a chance to start, right? There's a game around the corner, right? But now all of a sudden there's no game, there's no team. So a lot of athletes were thinking, what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. And a lot of the conversations we were having was like, listen, you're still an athlete. Like, this is a time like where, we have so many luxuries. We have beautiful gyms. We have beautiful trainers. A lot of athletic programs have sports performance. They're like everywhere you look now, there's all these resources, right? And now the struggle that I saw with so many athletes was their identity and sense of purpose was taken away.
Wow.
And there was a sense of, I don't know what to do, right? And how do you build that up when your entire life you've had coaches telling you what to do, parents taking you to practice, your strength coach telling you what to do, right? Like, and now that all of that is gone, right? And so I think that anxiety that you talked about earlier, Dr. Shepard, is this sense of like this uncertainty and this helplessness, right? Like, because you don't know what to do. And also this uncertainty of what's going to happen in the future. Is it going to affect my recruiting? Are other people training, and to me, there's all these things that made it really, really difficult. Now, I also think, and these are the conversations I was having, was this is an opportunity. Like, we talk about this word mental toughness, right? And people love to say mental toughness, but very few people can define it. Very few people can define it, right? Very few coaches can define it. They think it means run harder, yell louder, like lift more. Like, that's not mental toughness anymore. It may have been 40 years ago, but it's not, right? And so to me, it was this opportunity. I said, well, listen, like, how do you train when you don't have a coach yelling at you, right? You don't have a gym. Like, how do you learn how to do that? But this was a foreign concept because people had never done it. And so to me, that uncertainty, I think, from a mindset standpoint, from a mental standpoint, right? And it wasn't necessarily about, do I put my athlete out on the field? Because at the time, there was no field to go out on, right? There was no gym to train in. Like, these things were largely shut down. But the problem was that our entire construct in which sports was built around, right, which was showing up, having people tell you what to do, driving you where to go. Now athletes at this level were not used to that because they had every luxury, right? And that's an entire, you think about being 14, 15, 16, or even 22. If you've never been exposed to that, and now you have to look within yourself, but you've never seen it, how do you draw upon that? And I think that was incredibly challenging for a lot of athletes. I also think there was a few that really came out stronger because now the field was level, right? Like, the experience, it wasn't like other people had better facilities or other people had better coaches, right? Largely, people had none of it. So how do you continue to build within that? And that was something that I really tried to impart and really tap into with these guys is, and I think that allowed some sense of purpose, right? Is that I can actually get ahead, right? When we talk about mindset and the mental aspect of sport, that field wasn't shut down. The field between our ears wasn't shut down. It was still sunny and 70. Everything was open. The problem is nobody knew what to do. I think when you start to tap in and teach them what to do, it can be incredibly empowering. Now, I say this all because that's what I do for a living. That's not easy for people to grasp. It wasn't easy for me to grasp initially because I thought, well, how do I train these people? How do I help them? But I do think that was something that was an interesting juxtaposition of like everything being shut down, the anxiety levels going up, the depression going up, sense of identity, sense of purpose. Like, why am I going to go to class? Like, what's going to happen in my future? All these things are very real.
Right.
But there was also, I think, for those who sort of embraced that and looked at it as this opportunity to say, well, what can I do? And I think that's an important thing in any situation we're in, right? So
yeah. Olu.
I agree with both sides actually very much. So a lot of high school kids were reaching out to me because at the time before the pandemic started, I agreed to coach high school football, but there's no season. So a lot of kids, coach, what can I do? Me thinking as an experienced former player, I'm like, I would love this time. I could just work out and get prepared for the season whenever it happens. But let's think, kids aren't thinking like that. They're thinking about the now and what's going to happen now. I have 0 offers. I want to go to college. How can I get film to get to college?
Wow.
So when you don't have any identity of how you're going to get to college or whatever you're going to do in life with sports, it's stressful because everybody think you could go junior college. Let me tell you, junior college is not what everybody makes it seems. A lot of people go there and they don't come out. And that's just that. You spend, it's like a bad investment. You spend money to go there, you got to pay for it, and then you don't get no scholarship. What are you gonna do? So it was eye-opening to see who's more self-driven than coach-driven. But I feel like the best athletes are the self-driven ones, the ones that don't need a coach to tell you what to do. So that's where the mental toughness comes in. But it takes a while to develop it. It took me to my junior year in college to develop it. Like, I don't need nobody to tell me what to do. I don't need you to scream at me. I know that I need to get better. I don't like sitting on the bench. So I need to do this to get right. Like in the professional world, if you have someone micromanaging you doing horrible work, no one wants to be micromanaged. So how about I just take it upon myself to do A+ work so I don't have F results?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Now, man, this is awesome because I was not expecting to get this type of insight that you all are giving me. I have, of course, high expectations, but you all are taking this to a level that I'm sitting here jotting down notes because this can be applied to so many different areas of our life. And I think people really don't understand how impactful sports can be on the development of a person, not just a man and a woman, a boy and a girl. It is so impactful. I just sat here and just wrote, I should say, and I'm going to talk more about an identity crisis. Man, I mean, that's huge. And I'm thinking about all those parents, and I would love to have been able to have a parent come on to see how are they managing their children when they can't get that film. Because you're absolutely right, Olu. People are wondering, like, how do I get the film? How do I get the ability to showcase my talents when, boom, we're shut down? You know, what do we tell those kids? I'm gonna just throw that out there. That wasn't a question on the, that we had discussed, but what do we tell them?
Yeah, so I mean, if I could jump in, so I mean, I work with a lot of parents, right? I work with a lot of parents, so these conversations come up, right? And what I find, which is so interesting about parents, is parents I think have the best intentions in the world, right? But they always feel like they got to fix something. They always got to fix it. And the problem with this whole situation is this has never happened. How are you going to fix something you've never experienced before? So now parents are anxious, right? And they're telling kids, you got to go out and train. You got to go out and train. Kids saying, where am I going to train? No, you got to work harder. Like, what are you doing? We got to get a coach. And so I think part of the problem was overall this anxiety level for everybody, right? This was unexpected. So parents had never experienced. Normally parents have had some experience, some life experience, right? They've walked more steps in life. They've had some challenges, setbacks. So they want to impart that upon their child. Why is it important to study ahead of time? Because parents have had times where they haven't and they failed, right? Why is it important, right, to like listen to your coach? Because parents have talked back in the past and realized what have happened, right? And now there was no previous template for this. So parents were anxious, right? And to some extent, what do they tell their kids? They didn't know what to tell their kids because they've never done it. Now, I also think it is an opportunity where, as a parent, what you can also do is really appreciate the experience of your child. Because what I notice is a lot of parents in their attempt to fix it, we're trying to say, look, people are dying. Like, you need to be grateful that you're in this house with us. And like, understood.
Yeah.
But their experience was taken away. Their growth and development and social emotional development was taken away. The other thing parents would say is, look, it's just a prom. Like, prom's stupid anyway. That kid needs to go to prom, right? The other thing parents are saying, look, you need to stay in the home. It's safe. But kids were not with their chosen people, right? If you have a household where the mother and the father are together, presumably they have chosen each other. right? The kids' chosen peers are their friends, right? And now they can't be with them. And so I think one thing that parents can do, they could have done it before, they can still do it, is identify where your child's at, right? And at least allow your child to experience the loss and the pain of not, because all the growth we just talked about with athletics, right? All those things, like if that's taken away, that's a big part of development that is now limited. You're not going to get that time back. You can presumably take a summer course, do an online tutoring class. You can presumably make up some of that academic loss, but the social emotional development, you're not going to get that back. And I think that's an important thing for parents to understand. And it's also important then to understand that that is a very valuable part of your child's experience. So identify with it and try to find ways to connect with your child versus lecturing them or being so focused in your work and life, because it's also an opportunity to spend time with your kid that you otherwise wouldn't have had, right? And I think those are some things that parents can understand. But it is, I think, to Dimitri's point, like it's a personal choice, right? Like you can't negate the numbers and the risks. But I think one of the things the numbers do not show are the mental health value, right? And that's something that we're sensitive to, right? Like we see the high rates of anxiety, we see the high rates of depression, we see kids becoming more isolated, we see higher rates of substance use with kids, right? We see all these things that are happening that you can't necessarily put on a graph like you can the data with, the numbers and the exposures, but that's something that's very valuable. And so to me, this pandemic is as much a medical issue as it is a mental health issue, as it is a financial issue. And it's sort of then weighing out like finding ways to work when you can, finding ways to, incorporate health, fitness, wellness, whether it's a team capacity, whether it's an individual, frankly, finding ways as a family to be active together, which maybe would not have been the case because you were driving your kid to practice and then you were going to work and, and maybe an opportunity that you guys can all do something together and reconnect and find redefine your relationship with your sport. Right. And that's something that parents could do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm about to switch hats here because I am a Chicago boy. I'm a White Sox fan, so I need to have you all speak to Dimitri, speak to these parents. When I was in Chicago, I preferred to go to it was Comiskey Park at the time, as opposed to Wrigley Field. Now, people love to go to Wrigley Field and just sit in the stands. Wrigley Field used to be people did not go to watch the Cub games. People used to go to Wrigley Field just to hang out. It was always like a club. It was like an outdoor club, seriously. But now the stands have been shut down. Now, again, we're starting to see some of that open up. But Dimitri, I want you to speak to those parents. I want you to speak to the people who would be in the stands. How do you manage these folks? You're the coach. What did you tell them? We just talked about a little bit about how parents can want to drive their children so far to do things that it actually could backfire. So speak to that.
I guess I'll speak on the fact of just parents, like Dr. T was speaking on, just parents being just using this time to use your resources. What I've just come to see in the past years from the recruiting standpoint, the development of student athletes, is that a lot of people are just misinformed. Like, if anything, COVID showed me, like, yeah, you might not have a lot more job opportunities, but another standpoint it showed you just what jobs kind of were important, like what was necessary. I don't need this many people here to do this or this many people here to do that. And I think parents should take the time to even help their kids, because the kids, high school kids in general, they just feel like they know everything. Like, Dad, Mom, how you going to tell me about this process? Or you never been through the process. You know what I'm saying? So I think definitely take the time to get informed on the process, especially with everything being so limited. Like not being able to go to certain camps, like whether you play softball, football, basketball, any sport, women or male, not being able to go to those camps. What can I do at home to showcase that I do have this skill set? Like as a parent, like it takes nothing. Your kids on the phone all day. They on the iPhone all day. They on YouTube everything all day. How can we utilize everything you're already doing as a parent to help expand what you're doing? Just so when these people do come, these coaches or organizations do come, we have things that we already have in the house to help you be better. And it just comes from just having, you might not have Wi-Fi at the home, but you can go to the library and look up resources like, well, what videos might I need to further my ability, further my recruiting process, just things like that. So I feel like the COVID definitely, you can use COVID definitely to just get more informed by every process you're thinking about. Like I said, I just learned that now, like kids, like Dr. Q was speaking on, people are so confused. People just anxiety attacks, the identity attacks. Like they don't know what to do. Like Olu even said, like, how do I even get to where I was trying to go? Like I dreamed of this for 10 years. I've been dreaming. I was watching college football at 4 years old. Maybe my siblings. I've been seeing this all my life. I've been seeing college softball on TV in Oklahoma. I see it so much on TV. Everybody knows about college softball. So it's like, if I've been seeing this all my life, what do I do now? I feel like that avenue is just completely taken away from me. So I feel like most definitely parents could help their children out by just getting more informed themselves. Because at the end of the day, you're a parent. I don't know how to be with my son yet, but I'm pretty sure he's going to feel like I can't tell him anything just because, like, Dad, like, you're older than me. Like, how can you tell me about this process I'm going through right now? But I think parents should get more informed, should just do more things, just to help the students out in the home.
Parents be more informed. That's awesome. That's great. So, Olu, I want you to speak to the controversy because you probably have heard, Baltimore County had decided not to open back sports for the spring session. Then they got a whole lot of flack.
They actually got a game. They playing today, right? Actually, they had a game today. They playing football right now as we speak, but it's very strict rules. Like no parents can come to practice. You got to change the ball out every 30 minutes.
Wow.
You're playing football. You're hitting people. So is it really – there's a lot of stuff that's going on that I don't agree to, but it's precaution, which is good. But I feel like the kids need to do something. They just can't be on YouTube and virtual school all day. I don't have any kids, so I don't know how I would feel with my kid, but I know if I was a kid and my dad said, no, I can't play, I'm going to sneak out the house and go play. To be honest.
Right. Just be right. Just tell the truth. But, I'm trying to understand. I want you to even comment a little bit more. So Baltimore County last week has said they were going to shut the season down. I mean, tell me what did that? I mean, what went through a child's head when that happened? Just what do you think went through their heads?
So with Baltimore County, they gave us about 4 different dates. So we would start, then they were like, "Oh, we're postponing it. Oh, virtual practice. Oh, we're coming out." So they finally uplifted it. So a lot of kids were like, "Coach, I'm being discouraged. I don't know what I want to do. Like, is this real?" They've just had a lot of uncertainty. And when the parents can't give kids uncertainty, they become pests. And they're like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I can't give you the answer. So it's like a lot of frustration in the house. Imagine frustrating in the house. We work in the mental health field, Dr. Shepard. We see our clients when they can't get out the house and a lot of anger is built up. It only leads to a lot of bad reactions. And I feel like every kid needs an outlet. If it's drawing, we call them coping skills. Then you need a coping skill. So sports is some people coping skills. People may draw, people may rap, talk to people, interactions. So the kids are really struggling now to really express themselves if sports were their outlet, because like I can't even do anything. And football, for my sport, football is not like something you could go pick up like a basketball and like I'm gonna go shoot a hoop. I could get some off. No, football, you want to prepare, you want to run 110s. Who wants to run 110s for fun?
Yeah, I don't know what a 110 is, so you educate me.
Simply a 100-yard sprint.
Ah, gotcha. No, I don't want to do that. Not fun. So I tell you, I want you to speak to the parents, Dr. T. Speak to the parents. How do you ease their anxiety? Ease their anxiety, their anger, and their apathy. Those are the 3 A's that I see within this pandemic. So how do we relieve that? Because they are feeling those things.
100%. I think one is to understand the longer that kids are inactive, the harder it's going to be for them to integrate, right? Like with anything, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So because as Ola was mentioning too, kids are becoming more and more isolated. They're becoming more inactive. It's just easier to go to the phone. It's easier to go to YouTube. It's easier to go to Instagram. And the problem is that, like, from a social development standpoint, that's limited. So I think one thing is understanding that, again, this time is very hard to get back. It's very hard to get back. It's an incredibly important time in a kid's development. And being out, being active, interacting with your world, interacting with your peers is so valuable to growth. And by understanding you're sort of weighing these things out, right? And there's risks with anything we do. I mean, truthfully, there really are. And I understand, again, the risks with these situations are sometimes higher from a health standpoint. And if you have a sick family member at home, or you had an elderly family member at home. But the other thing I think that a lot of parents are doing is sort of making these blanket statements like you're just not going to do it, right? And the problem then becomes is then what is the child supposed to do, right? So there's anger, there's resentment, and to that point, that anxiety fuels the anger, and it fuels the apathy, right? And so recognize the anxiety, identify, but also communicate with your kid, right? I think a lot of times these decisions are made in absolutes because the parent said so, but the child also sees other kids are out necessarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other schools are having athletics, right? And so now it also shifts the balance, right? Because it's like, why are these schools have the facilities and the ability to have athletics, but I can't? And it makes them feel even more marginalized, right? And again, like you talk about just all these different situations in life that marginalize people where they feel segregated to some capacity. This is part of that. So I think one of the things that athletics and sport does is it really does help level, right, for lack of a better term, it levels the playing field where people can interact and be out and grow regardless of what your resources are to some extent, right, to some extent. And so I think understanding that and understanding those limitations, but also trying to find a way to consider that is important. Look, I think it's also about that communication, right? Like if Olu's point said is if his father said, look, you can't play, he would sneak out, right?
Right.
If you understand and you have the conversation with child, say, listen, we are okay with this, but we're not okay with this. This is where we have to, we need you out there. And I know it's uncomfortable to wear a mask, but that's going to allow us to feel more comfortable allowing you to play, right? We know you can't play this sport, but we're allowing you to play this sport. So again, I think if you have these conversations and you're willing to have those conversations and you understand that your child has a mind, they have an opinion, right? They have the ability to have some say in their growth and development, then that's going to help you guys work collaboratively versus sort of making these decisions. I think that's so important. I think the other thing, again, to understand is like we're all anxious, right? We're all angry, and we can't necessarily go back to the way things were. I'm sure in the mental health field, you guys get this all the time. Like people love using this word normal, right? When are things normal? Like
Right.
normal doesn't exist. Normal has never existed. Like if you look at what normal is completely skewed in every part of history, right? Like normal is broken. So let's not try to figure out what normal is. Let's look at where we are and what we can do with it and how to grow, right? Like, why are we trying to go back to normal? Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's go back and figure out ways that we can grow, ways that we can connect with our kids, how to be more active, right? Like maybe now it means all of the family starts exercising together. Instead of driving the kid to practice, he's the one or she's the one that exercises. And we're saying, oh, we don't have time, right? Like now show your kid, you know what? We're all going to do this together, right? We're all going to go for walks, or we're all going to go for runs, or we're all going to play soccer or football in the backyard, right? And have those conversations. And then within that, you start to facilitate and become more comfortable with, like, you start to educate yourself, like Dimitri said, right? You start to become more informed. Now you have a better frame of reference of like, okay, this could work a little bit. It's not the same, but it could work. But I think it's just everything is a risk. Every time you leave the house, it's a risk.
That's right.
I mean, there's a higher chance that you're going to get into a car accident, truthfully, than you're going to contract this disease. But you have to be safe. It doesn't, right? Like you still have, it doesn't mean everybody should just be out there, but like you have to be extra careful, right? And you have to look at what your limitations are and be careful. So if you have attention deficit, right, you need to make sure your phone is away when you're driving. You need to have a seatbelt. If you're an inexperienced driver, you need to drive a little bit slower, maybe not take the highway, right? Like you make these adjustments in your life based on where you are and what you need to do. This is a model we can adopt to this, right? And start to become more comfortable integrating ourselves. You know, Jonathan, you said we're getting the vaccine, right? And this is means we need to be diligent. Well, like, let's learn to wash our hands more effectively, which frankly we haven't done as a society. Like, let's learn to distance ourselves more effectively because frankly we haven't. Let's become comfortable wearing a mask. Is it uncomfortable? Yes, but frankly, other countries have more uncomfortable means of like how they dress and how they conduct themselves, and they still do it.
That's right.
So I think we're also used to having all these luxuries and freedoms, and when we don't have them, we think we can't do anything.
Right.
But like, frankly, if we wash our hands, if we wear a mask, if we distance ourselves, does it mean we can go back to the way things were? No. But does it mean that we can have a more active level and an engagement and a respect for our culture and for other people and communicating? I think it does. And I think it just means, to Dimitri's point, being informed, educating yourself instead of saying yes or no. To Olu's point, understanding this is an important part for these kids. They're asking these questions. So let's find a way to answer them. Right.
Absolutely.
And I think, to my point, it's like, understand anxiety, doubt, frustration, all part of it. But the longer we don't do this, the more deconditioned we will, the higher rates of anxiety, the more depression, the more substance use, the more domestic abuse, the more people are in this house together, anxious, apathetic, angry. What's supposed to happen? Right? Because parents don't have coping skills to deal with this because they've never dealt with it. So again, I think being out in the community allows that separation. It allows like the ability to unwind, unplug. Like, these things are so important.
Yeah.
And athletics provides a quote unquote excuse to do that.
Yeah.
So I think there's ways to do it. Schools are doing it. Now, they take extra precautions, they have resources, they have better facilities, but they are doing it. Like, we've seen the NFL had a season this year. The NBA did the bubble, they're having a season. Like, it's doable. It's doable. But it just takes work. It takes discussion. It takes a level of engagement, and you have to be a little more creative, but it's doable.
Yeah.
Doable.
Let me do this. I want to deal with one particular subject just before, and I want to lead this into resources. And Dimitri, you're going to be the first one up with this. So we know that we've been talking about the different mental health disorders, the different mental health issues that will arise if you're an athlete. In particular, I'm referring to an example of a quarterback, a pretty well-known quarterback back in the state of Illinois, who completed a suicide just less than 2 months ago. Sad situation. Star quarterback, one of the well-known programs, high school programs in Illinois. And even though I didn't play football, I knew all the high school programs because I was in the band. We used to have to play with the football team. We used to have to go travel with them. And it hurt when I heard this. And so I'm bringing this up right now as we're bringing to a close. I want to talk about the mental health resources. I want you all to talk about how would you manage a person who you know who was struggling. And Dr. T, you'll close it out. But I want to start with Dimitri. As what do we do when you see someone who is struggling because of the pandemic, because of whatever else may be going on, who's struggling with depression, anxiety, the different things that we've talked about?
When I was at Northwestern, I worked for a program called Student Support Services, TRIO Student Support Services. It's a federal government grant, like with Upward Bound, things like that. And we had, I had worked with students that were going through those things, like just going through COVID. In TRIO, you're a first generation college student, low income, or student with like an ADA accommodation. You know, you just need help with college, and that's what my program's there for. So I would have students come up and talk to me like, Coach Wilson, like, really, I don't want to do this no more. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, these are kids that's 12 hours away from graduating. Like, 12
Wow.
That's a semester.
Wow.
So you're 12 hours away, and he just looking at me like, I had a few kids, Coach Will, I can't do it no more. I'm just checked out. Like, I'm real depressed. I had a few students drop out of school, and just like I'm it's just a lot going on. I can't afford it. I can't take care of myself anymore, and with everything going on. So I don't know. It's just hard, like just dealing with it. I try to make the connections with my students and the students I interact with. I'm not a mental health expert, but I try to make connections, and I try to find, me personally, I try to find all resources I can find on campus or online, or just I will contact Olu. Like, I would use my network of friends. Like, I know he's in mental health. Hey, do you know any programs I can use to tell my kids about that I don't know about because I'm not particularly in it. I just have a good heart, I feel like. So that's my passion towards it. That's why I want to connect with you. I don't want you out here feeling alone. Because even as I caught myself as I'm 27 years old. I caught myself one day like I felt like checking out just out of life. Like, man, it's COVID. I can't get the opportunities I need. Well, I'm trying to blame it on COVID. I can't get the opportunities I want because just because it's stopping everything. I'm depressed. I was mentally checked out. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might go to the car. I don't know what I'm gonna do today. I'm just feeling up, and I never get like that. But I had to reevaluate myself to check myself. Like, hey, man,
Wow.
what are you talking about? And I almost felt like I didn't have to tell no one to talk to. I had to call Olu just to. He don't even know what I'm going through, but I'm calling him just to debrief, just to chop it up.
Right.
Talk. But I just feel like so that's what I try to do. I just try to be a resource and try to find resources for my kids and for myself because I know I'm going through it through these times. I'm feeling like some days like I know I should be here and I done a lot. I just got my master's and I feel like I'm still not where I want to be. Like what I need to go do. Do I need to go to doctorate school? Like do I still need to keep pushing? I'm still hot right now. Like I'm still in it. Do I need to keep pushing? I definitely understand like just the standpoint of being depressed and I just try to find resources. That's what I try to do. And I try to, just have empathy and just be able to relate to somebody, relate to the kids I'm talking to.
Yeah. Olu.
I honestly feel a lot of colleges don't present enough about mental health for their athletes. They say they have it, but when we have that first meeting of the season, no one ever says, if you're feeling depressed, this is the person you go to. They tell us don't use drugs. Don't embarrass your family. Don't embarrass the team. They never say anything about your mental well-being. They never say anything about it. Only you have those few coaches that say, if you need to talk, I'm always available, right? And then a lot of cases, you get a lot of kids from different backgrounds, right? And some of the coaches can't relate, but some of them can. And at the end of the day, it's a job. So a lot of these coaches handle it as a job. So they get you there. They tell your parents they care about your mental well-being, your physical well-being, but everything's different when you get there. I know I was dealing with depression when I tore my ACL. I didn't have the correct resources to express myself during the rehab process. It's something I never went through. You get an MRI, they tell you, oh, you can't play for 12 months. But I have to be in a town with nothing to do but sports, and I can't have an outlet. I have to go to class. I have to find my way around campus on crunches. And I'm away from the team, the only thing that's sane. So I feel like the NCAA has to do a better job with presenting more resources for athletes to have an outlet to express their mental well-being without having a stigma on it. Because if I go to my coach and tell him I'm depressed, the first thing he's going to say is, what do you mean you're depressed? Oh, you're not mentally strong enough. Do you know you're replaceable? That's the first thing they're going to say. They're not going to say, oh, how can we help you? Maybe if you're like Tom Brady, now at Tom Brady's level, but Tom Brady probably at Michigan, if he told him he's mentally ill, he's feeling some type of way, they were like, okay, we can find another Tom Brady.
Wow.
So it's like
that's real talk.
They make us feel like we're replaceable. That's why I don't know if I would let my son play football. The way they treat football players is totally wrong because we're banging our heads. You're not hurt, you're injured.
Wow.
It's not right.
Wow. No, I appreciate that. No, that's real talk. That's real talk. Dr. T, speak to that.
Yeah, so I think you guys are right? Like this is why I'm in the space that I'm in. This is why I went into sports psychiatry and created the Mindset Training Institute. It's exactly this, right? Like this identification that athletes to some extent are, in my opinion, one of the more vulnerable populations, right? Because of the risk of injuries, right? ACLs, concussions, those kind of things, the hours and hours you put in that, becomes part of your identity, whether your sport ends prematurely because of injury or because your career ends because you graduate college or you finish your pro career. These are all vulnerable periods of time, right? And there's not a lot of great resources in place, partly because I think people aren't uneducated and they don't want to touch it, right? When people don't know about something, most people don't want to learn about it because it's uncomfortable, right? Now, what you are seeing is some of the greatest programs like University of Alabama, right? Nick Saban, they have a great sports psychology and a sports psychiatry program, right? Pete Carroll, the Seattle Seahawks, really big into mindset training. Phil Jackson, right? Really big into mindset training, right? Bring it back to Chicago roots, man. But he would bring something every year, right? And you start to see what's really interesting. And Olu, you spoke to this idea of like, man, you're replaceable. But I think some of the greatest coaches, if they truly want their players to win, you need your players to be more confident. You need them to be more resilient, right? You need them to be able to overcome challenges. And if you take the time to listen, educate yourself, be empathetic and treat them as a person first and a player second, you'd be surprised what you can find that people can do, right? Because like people are incredibly resilient, right? Like people are incredibly resilient if you give them an opportunity to be, right? And I think listening, being empathetic, being open, but it might mean that you have to spend an extra 5 minutes with a player. But I think the true coaches that are really, really the ones that have been around the longest, right? Think about Nick Saban, Pete Carroll, right? Phil Jackson. These coaches have created winning cultures year after year after year after year. They're not focused on just winning one year. They're focused on winning over and over again. But what happens? They develop amazing relationships with their players. Their players stay, right? Their players come back. Like, and everybody says we want to go there and play for these coaches. What are they doing differently? They're listening. They're educating themselves. They're bringing in people that are mental health professionals to educate their team, to provide resources. And I think, honestly, that's something that a coach, if they really, really want a winning program, can look at it. We're missing, right? We're missing the ability to help our players get stronger up here, right? We have every other resource to get them stronger from the neck down, right? We have nutrition, we have supplements, we have all this, right? But you see it, and I'll give you guys an example because it's been open out there. But the three of us are from Baltimore, right? Coach Juan Dixon played at the University of Maryland, right? He was a national champ. He played in the NBA. He's the head coach at Coppin State University, which is one of the HBCUs, right? Historically black colleges, right? Juan Dixon brought me in 2 years ago to meet with his team. I've worked with Juan's team for 2 years now, right? They're playing tonight as we speak in the semifinals of the MEAC. They won their division this year, right? And openly and publicly, players are like, Dr. T, this is amazing. You've got kids who never would have had this experience.
Wow.
Now are able to talk about their family situations, their struggles, what their struggles are on the court, right? And these are players, some of them that have pro aspirations, whether it's in the NBA or overseas or whatever. But like these are predominantly kids that have come from relatively lower socioeconomic backgrounds, right? And just providing just the coach saying, look, we believe in this. We're going to bring somebody in, right? They don't have to figure it out, but they can find somebody that does, can be really valuable. And I only use that as an example because that's an example that I'm a part of that we're really kind of seeing, right? And now we've got coaches that are like, man, I'm learning more about this, right? So like, if we want to get better, we want to learn the latest techniques, right? The latest skills, but like, why not go up here? I think that's important. But the other thing, frankly, is just be open to listen, right? Just be able to listen, right? And we talked about this play to the whistle, right? Like the whistle hasn't blown. If we're on this conversation, if we're on this call, your whistle has not blown.
Wow.
So that may mean that the last play is over, but it means you can figure out what to do in this play, right? Like if you keep getting down as a nose tackle, right? If every time you get knocked on your butt and you just keep coming back and you keep coming back, you should realize, you know what? This guy keeps hitting me a high low. I'm going to go low and go around him, right? All of a sudden you figure it out. And so I think it's this idea and this understanding that as a coach, as a player, as a parent, give yourself time to figure it out and look for those resources. I think that's really valuable. And those are all intrinsic, by the way. Those aren't external resources, right? I mean, bringing a mental health professional is. But understand, too, that some of these things are internal. The other thing I would mention, I don't know if you guys know about this, but there's a great organization called the Hidden Opponent, right? And this was started by a young lady that was a Division I college athlete who had a mental health vulnerability, had a lot of struggles, and she basically started speaking out. And now her organization is the Hidden Opponent. Her name is Victoria Garrick. They speak at schools, they speak at programs. And what it really does is it provides an opportunity for athletes to be able to come forward and to know that like they're not alone and it's a community of really tough, strong, like just really, really talented athletes that are struggling, and there's resources. And I bring that up again, partly because they reached out to me recently and I linked up with them, and I'm privileged to now be on their medical advisory board. So it's out there. It's not easy to find. It needs to be more, right? It really needs to be something that's a part of any program like Olu said. It needs to be part of like, this is our coach, this is our nutrition person, this is our mental health person, this is your academic student support person. Like this is your team. When you're here, we've got somebody to help you with all of it. It really needs to be taken into account for all those things. But I do think it's important to understand that when teams do go to it, it has a big impact. And if a coach really wants to win, get your players right up here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
show them the support up here, because now when they're anxious or they're depressed or they doubt themselves, or like Dimitri said, they're like, I don't know what to do. They have the ability to either figure it out themselves, or they know they can reach out to a friend or a coach or a parent, because they're going to listen and they're not going to say what's wrong with you, or you're replaceable, or why don't you just quit, or why don't you push harder, right? Like, if we change our narrative and our language, then either we figure it out ourselves or we can reach out to somebody else, and then we all support each other, right? And that's so valuable. But like, how else have we gotten through this pandemic? Is by coming together as a community, right? And you see these amazing relationships that have formed and these amazing bonds that have formed, but like, that's something that anybody can learn from. So
Yeah. This has been awesome. This is awesome discussion. Awesome discussion. What I want to do, I'm going to wrap it up now because I don't want to extend too much more of our guest time. They have been phenomenal. I mean, man, this has been just. I'm sitting here literally taking notes because I'm going to be utilizing this in some of my presentations. Yes, I am a sports buff. I could probably talk sports with anybody. But as far as playing, no, that wasn't me. I was too skinny. I couldn't take a hit. But let me tell you, the philosophy and the ideology, the things that you have talked about today, I will be utilizing because people need to know that they are not replaceable, that they should play to the whistle. Man, I've been right. That identity crisis doesn't have to occur unless you really don't know who you are, and that particularly coaches, and you don't have to be a sports coach, but you can be a life coach, can help shape who that true identity is for that person. I mean, man, there's just so many different things I have been just writing down, and I don't want to go through all of them, but this has been awesome. Dr. T, how can we reach you if you are still open to taking patients? Or again, I don't want to put you out there right now. If, you know, this has been a real busy season for us. So
sure. From an athletic standpoint, since that's what we're talking about, yep. I have a private practice, but also do a lot of work with athletes. So my website is mindsettraininginstitute.com. Again, mindsettraininginstitute.com. If anybody's on Instagram, social media, Dr. T _sportspsych, SPORTSPSYCH. I mention that because I put motivational things on there. I put myself challenging myself in different ways. I'm a big believer, if you're going to teach it, you got to show it.
Absolutely.
And then my podcast is the Mindset Experience. It's behind my head right now. And that's just another opportunity. Again, if you don't have access to me directly, you can listen to it. I've had some really great individuals on there who have had a lot of challenges, setbacks, how they've overcome it, how they've worked through it. Really, really cool people. And again, I think sometimes you just listen to it from different people and something sticks, right? And so anybody can reach me that way. And you can certainly get my email through my website as well. And I'm happy to answer questions or help people as best I can. Absolutely.
Great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Dimitri, do you want to share anything on how people can reach out to you?
People can reach out to me through social media. Both my Twitter and my Instagram are both _3 underscore. So it's ___ DWIL, DWIL. And I'm open to anything you have about questions about recruiting, player development. Like, even if you want to be a player development, you want to learn how to be a director of recruiting from the high school standpoint. Like, you just want to get on top of it early. Like, you might just love sports, but you might want to be in the more of the operation side of sports. Like, well, how do I recruit this? How do I recruit? Like, I want to be a scout, and I want to be an NFL scout myself. But as far as the college side of it, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of it. So you can reach me in those platforms.
It's good. All right, Olu.
Just email. I'm not big on social media. I need to do now after the day.
No problem. No problem.
My email is my last name FASEHUN at hopehealthsystems.com. Systems with a S.
All right. All right. Hope Health Systems. That's our place of employment. Got some good people over there. I've been over there now, amazingly, coming up on my 10-year anniversary, being at one institution. Dr. T, can you believe that? Coming out of Johns Hopkins.
I saw you when you started, and I knew you were going to do some great things, so I can't believe it.
Oh, man, I tell you. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. But I never thought I'd be there for 10 years straight, and I'm happy being over there. And again, you can reach out to us at hopehealthsystems.com. Thank you all so much. there was not as much chat as we normally do because people were just listening. And let me tell you all, we do have triple the number of views when people go back and replay. So thank you for those who are replaying. So I'm never bothered by how many people are live viewing us because when we look at, when I go back another week or two, I'll be like, man, where all these people come from? So we want to make sure that we send a shout out to everybody who's watching the replays. Thank you, Dr. Harris. Thank you, Charmaine, down there in Georgia. Good to see you on here. Dr. Hayes is here. This was really awesome. I had a little surprise for you, but she couldn't get through. I wanted to bring on a sports mom, and so just to let people know that we are not just favoring the men or the male persuasion in this discussion, that we know that there are a lot of women out there who are engaged in sports, absolutely. And so that just didn't work out with us for today. But anyway, I want to thank you all for being a part of today's Ask the Doctors broadcast. Again, hopehealthsystems.com. You can look us up. 410-265-8737 is our phone number. Thank you once again. If our guests, if you just stay here, I'm going to go ahead and end this for this evening. Please remember the 4 W's: wear your mask, wash your hands, watch your distance, and still wait on gatherings. We're moving closer. We're getting a little bit closer. All right, but it's still time to wait on those gatherings. And maybe by the summertime, we'll be able to see each other and be able to really hang out and be able to really celebrate us coming through this pandemic. All right. See you all next week. Let somebody know. Ask the Doctors will be back on 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.